Please welcome Allyson Nicholson, Vice President, Supply Chain Design for Moderna, talking about Moderna's supply chain journey in support of the mRNA platform.
Thank you so much. Well, talking about supply chain being put in the map, what is that for a title? Supply chain design. What is that about? Anyway, it is all about supply chain excellence and transformation. A lot of the topics we've been hearing on day one and that we're also going to enjoy on day two are all about how a supply chain can really deliver and transform what a company does regularly. It is with great honor that I'm here today. Thank you, Nick, for inviting me. I also felt deep gratitude to this school for the students that I personally had under my care when I was in my previous company at Amgen. And I can say the caliber of students that this school generates is impressive. So for the new cohort and the more to come, the best of luck as you venture into your next assignments and your future jobs. And please keep up with the tradition of excellence that you all represent. It is also an honor for me to be part of Moderna. It's a company that is very young, and I often describe as a teenager in the body of a giant. And so how do you transform a company and deliver the processes that need to take us to the greater mission of the company, which is deliver on this new way of therapeutics. It is more than a vaccine, but the opportunity and the moment in history gave way to something like this. And for that, we're also very grateful, but we're grateful to science, grateful to academics, grateful to also the governments that came together to enable what we all have enjoyed, all the many hands. But with that, I also wonder, how many travel here? How many were able to enjoy a vacation flying somewhere? Can you raise your hands? Great. How many of you heard the latest CDC guidelines in terms of relaxing a lot of those regulations? Did anybody take a look? Excellent. So we are in a new world that is enabled by this type of science. And I don't know if Raki's here today. Do I see her? She's not here with us? She also had an experience delivering medicines like this. So it's not only one company, it is a journey. So I wanna make sure that that is very clear in everybody's mind. I'll walk you through a little bit of the history just to really set you in context as to what was able to be delivered when humanity comes together. Number one, the company formed in 2010 and officially really kicked off operations in 2011. And at that point, very early on, from 2010 to 2018, there was a lot of advocating for the science and recruiting believers in the science so we could advance and become the company we are so lucky to be today. With that, in 2018, the company became public, but even before that was a reality, in 2014, the company decided to invest in manufacturing. So I got this question from Carl earlier today, how much of your manufacturing is internal versus external? Well, for a small clinical company to have its own manufacturing facility is quite visionary, and that's what the company did. And at that point, there was it was almost like destiny was there set to be placing us where we needed to be in the 2020 story that everybody's so well aware. So at that point, a lot of the research and the clinical studies that had already been advanced enabled the company to be a major player alongside many consolidated and powerful companies. And in 2022, we're facing a very promising pipeline that I encourage everyone to take a peek in our website, very well explained. The biggest challenges here is a lot about scale. And even this morning, also with Carl, talking about supply chain issues with raw materials and some SKUs that are critical to deliver what we needed. So if Starbucks has problems with plastic cups, imagine the challenges that we had to be able to scale, to be able to deliver the many vaccines, not only in the United States, but around the world. And so that was quite dramatic, and it started with the people. So this company was fairly small, approximately 700 people at the beginning of the pandemic, quickly evolved to 1,000, and right now we're 3,000 people in the course of about a year and a half. That also has been quite the challenge. But the most important, I actually want to do a shout out to the digital folks that gave the chat yesterday. Digitalization also enabled a lot of the things that we have here. So Moderna is a very good example of being able to apply that. Now, at the time of the pandemic, Moderna had produced about 100 doses for preclinical and clinical studies. At the end of the pandemic, or right when we are standing right now, we're looking at 1.4 billion doses that were produced. How do you ramp up from that? I think at the end of the day, it really has to do with the circumstance that we had in front of us. And it also takes a wonderful network and partnership to break all those barriers that you see. For many of the people that were in the company at that very juncture, this is how it looked. A challenge like that, and you had to sprint. Not only try to climb it and survive it, but sprint it, get to the top, and deliver. No time for failure. But more importantly, supply chain has to enable not only the plans, we had to, all the traditional plan, source, make, deliver, manifested themselves in the work that needed to happen. And so this company is actually a very good example of living all those concepts that we all have learned in school about supply chain. Important to say, all the work that had been done prior to 2019 paid off, and a vaccine was able to be delivered instead of approximately 10 days, which is the average delivery time of a vaccine, in, quite frankly, months, you could almost say days. And so that is also something that we're incredibly proud. It's a wonderful promise that should be continue to be supported for the future of medicine and how we can deliver things in this new age of medicines. Here you can see it's an inspirational chart to show you the complexity. Not only did we needed to establish a very quick network of raw materials, we needed to also stand up a significant amount of capacity to get us from 100 to the billions that we needed. But we had a lot of good things starting, right? We had that preclinical and clinical experience. We were able to leverage a lot of that partnership with the government, and not only the US government, but the European governments and others that were very, very distinguished in their focus to enable solutions for their own populations. And so this is really not an example just of Moderna, it's really an example of what humanity can do. When there is a calling for action, the response is always outstanding, and that's what we had in there. Now, how did we do it? One of the key to success was simplicity. Many of the companies that you have studied, or many of the companies that you work on and represent here today, is about simplicity. In this case, what we needed to do and what we intend to continue to do is that simplicity. Simplicity in the way the manufacturing process was designed, the formulation itself, the labeling on how we went to market. For some of you that are aware of the whole pharmaceutical or food industries, there is a lot to be said about the labeling and the life cycle management. And so keeping that well-balanced was a key to success. And then lastly, really ensuring that there is a constant hypercare. At Moderna, you have to really act with dynamic range, and that means that you have to ensure that you're going to be very much on the trenches, looking at details, hands-on, looking at what's happening, keeping the beat, and respond accordingly. And those suppliers and partners that we enlisted along the way ended up delivering for us what we expected. Not only their goods and their output and services, but execution at one beat with us. And that was fantastic. So we went really from having one facility that was built early on in 2014 in Boston, Massachusetts, in a city called Norwood. And from there, we ramped up to have many CMOs, and that is, the rest is history. You're all familiar with that. Now, I also want to make sure that I talk about the people. And people, students, people, workers, people that came to help us. But more importantly, based on the situation, I would say the job was easy to lead a workforce like this because everybody was so motivated to be able to transform. Now that we are past this point, how do we motivate people to continue to do a very difficult job? And it is on the promise of what these therapeutics are and what we can do to really transform the lives of people in better medicines that are focused on grievous diseases as well. I think at the end of the day, that ramp up of 3,000 people was a very heavy lift. In fact, there was almost an assembly line for interviewing. People had their daily jobs, and then at the end of the day, they had to actually begin their recruiting assignment and make sure that everybody was enlisted. It is a fascinating place. We do have, many of you have learned the valuable gift that it is benchmarking. At any given time right now, we're almost like a United Nations of all these different industries and pharmaceutical places. So the ability to create process and excellence is at our fingertips. It's not going to last us forever, but it's something that we have been able to tap into to create solutions to many problems very quickly. In fact, one of our values is to be relentless and collaborate. And having that ability to have so much to tap into is absolutely invaluable. Now, we also have wonderful social architecture. So the values that we have are simple, but very common and grounded into what people can respond into. Be bold, be collaborative, be curious, be relentless. And all of that was a call to action from the start. So all the people that started very early on when the pandemic hit were prepared for that challenge, just because that's what the culture of the company represented. Now, since then, we have created mindsets. So the mindsets are also a way to glue such a large workforce in a short period of time. And among those mindsets, there are about 12 of them. These mindsets are enabling also people to really learn quickly, be able to pivot quickly, run ideas in parallel, and be able to act with urgency. That is one call to action. And in there, the readiness for what's to come is absolutely outstanding and very promising. So right now, we do have 44 active programs. We have one commercial product, which is a Spikevax and our COVID vaccine in the US. And we have, of course, that vaccine is distributed worldwide. But we have programs currently in phase 3 for the flu and RSV, respiratory diseases that we are also familiar. Someday we continue to advance our phase 2 that are going to be very promising too for Zika, for example, and some other therapeutics. But the range of areas of therapy is very large. So the story doesn't end here. For us, this is just the beginning. And so with that comes that responsibility to ensure that we can respond as many times as we need to for what society is calling on us to deliver on our promise. We have learned a lot during this period of time. More importantly, we have learned and gained self-confidence. It is easy to forget that only 3 years ago, this company was still advocating for this science. And today, in the many people that raised your hand, including me, I have 4 of those in me, represent a real thing. It is a real transformational call to action for so many things. But then also we need to, one of the values of the company is very focused, is that we digitalize everywhere we can. And the value of digitalization is never gonna be done. In fact, I am personally, that project that your dad said don't take, I had to take. I had no choice. So I am leading from an operations CMC perspective, our transformation on SAP. This is the next generation. We're gonna completely be as digitalized as we can, and it is a great privilege, but I'm nervous thinking of your dad. But nevertheless, the learning experience has been fantastic and phenomenal, and there is a lot of reflection constantly on lessons learned. So we go at it, we learn what we need to learn, and then we quickly regroup to see what next is gonna be. But like I said, now we need to take these lessons and continue that journey. And for us, from a supply chain perspective, this is the absolute best place to be. In one hand, you will learn all types of planning, from planning for government supply to planning for tendering, planning for seasonal products that have a lot of variants like COVID. But we also have regular therapeutics, and we will also have personalized cancer vaccines. So that is going to be, for those planning aficionados, it's going to be very interesting how we're going to be able to build very robust processes and leverage all the digitalization can do for us to advance in that front. But also temperature monitoring, logistics, transportation there is absolutely a fascinating place to be. And so for me, I am just so grateful that I get the opportunity to shape how the supply chain processes will be for the future to be able to deliver on this mission. So with that, I just want to thank you very much for your time and open for any questions if there's any time.
So, morning, and this is Fan, which is a recent joiner for cohort 10. And here, please.
I can barely hear you. I think we're having the same problem as yesterday. So I wonder if you could come closer or, yeah.
Sure, I will try my best. Can everyone hear now? Okay, I will come a little bit close. So I have my question right down. Okay, so just one question. So one of the challenges that today's each supply chain function facing is about how to quick respond to the market in an agility way. And that really need a function of supply design to pave the way for that. So we all know that Moderna in the past few years has a significant scale up. So I'm wondering, in the terms of supply chain design, if there are any best practice strategy or best practice that you would like to share or inspire the practitioners within the industry.
Very nice.
Thanks.
Yeah, the question was very much around how, since we needed to have such a dramatic scale up, right, from 100 doses at the beginning of the pandemic to billions, it is a challenge. I think the best practices there, one of the things that we are building and have now something very robust is a CMO operating model. All companies will have internal and external manufacturing. How do you actually have that integration, and that visualization is going to continue to be incredibly important. So one of the best practices that I can say is, and we heard it yesterday a lot, that end-to-end visualization and the ability to tap into technology to create a digital ecosystem that enables you to really monitor all the key parameters that are valuable for your particular product, it is absolutely paramount, and it has been paramount for us. We're in that journey. We will continue to pursue that, but more importantly, it's also simplicity in the way the product has been designed and how we went to market. And so having that simplicity in terms of formulation and the labeling strategy, et cetera, also helps, because then you're treating all your CMOs as extensions of your own execution. So, and again, the last thing that I would say, our head of CMC, Juan Andres, is a fantastic advocate, great motivator, and has actually onboarded very strategic partnerships for us. And so that whole concept of a strategic partnership with suppliers is absolutely a must embrace as supply chains get stood up.
Hi, Allison, can you hear me?
Almost, yeah, but I'll come out.
Okay, should I come up too? Okay, let's do this. So thank you, Allison, for sharing, and thank you, Moderna, for your wonderful vaccines, which I am a recipient of. I'm just wondering, when I think of Moderna, it's a pharmaceutical company that ramped up, like you said, in a very short amount of time. And when I think of 2019 and 2020, logistics was a mess. And that's understatement of the year, right? I mean, it was crazy. So, you know, all these things were happening, and a pharmaceutical company, how do you go into managing the logistics, especially cold chain? I mean, you say logistics, that's one thing. You talk about cold chain, that's a whole different other aspect. And air freight, tons and tons of air freight, even charters. How did you manage that? From my experience, you know, I have a background in logistics. It was extremely difficult to manage our customers, and working for large companies like DHL, we struggled getting capacity. So you're talking about capacity at a massive level, right, to distribute throughout the U.S. And a supply chain which ends at the pharmacy or at the doctor, right? That supply chain is very intricate, very challenging, very difficult, in probably one of the most difficult times when ocean freight was super challenged. That ocean freight resulted in you know, more demand for air freight. I had customers that were moving entire containers on airplanes now, you know, shifting modes. How did Moderna manage that, and what was your strategy in partnering with distribution logistics providers? And were these new relationships, or had these already been established prior to all that? Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question. Yes, it's all about logistics. By the way, logistics, transportation, very big place in my heart. My previous company, I was head of global logistics. Really, this is another manifestation of what the world can do when the mission calls for it. And I can tell you that the enablement that governments gave, I mean, many of the shipments were even escorted by the police from place to place to ensure that we had the ability to mobilize the product where it needed to go. So when humans want, humans can. And I think that this is the easiest way to represent that, because the challenges of drivers and what we heard yesterday, the ability to find airspace was very critical. Very strong partnerships, moving as one. We did not have the ability to treat any service provider as an external entity. It was augmentation in a very fast pace. And that actually, we got the response that the world needed. And so when you have that kind of a calling, I wish I had another explanation for you, but it was just a very meaningful response that the world had as a commitment to get us to where we are. I mean, when you reflect this event, I remember in 2019, one of my staff members in my previous company that was an alumni here, Allison, are we gonna be able to participate in this summit? No, we can't. We're not traveling. We're not going anywhere. We have to stay pat. And we're here today. It's amazing. And we're able to have this collaboration and this exchange. And there's many that will come. And it's all because human wanted and human was able to do what we needed to do. But it's fascinating, the entire cold chain. I encourage you to research it. Actually, the FDA has a lot of very good information on it, instructions on how to mobilize and what happens at the pharmacies. That's why the appointments were so important, et cetera, et cetera. But it is a very complex cold chain for sure. Thank you. Thank you.